Hello and welcome to another session of Groundbreakers Live. I'm your host Javed Mohammed, and to recognize Sangam 2020, we have Chris Saxon, who's doing 3 presentations at there. So Chris, welcome.
Hi Javed, how are you?
Good, thank you. And Chris is a developer advocate for SQL. I think he lives, dreams, everything in 3 letters.
Yep.
So Chris, you've got like 3 sessions there. You've got a fireside chat. You've got the rapid fire session. But I thought we'd talk about your particular, the one that you're doing individually. The pattern matching and SQL memories is equal to pure SQL awesomeness.
Yes.
It's quite a brilliant formula. So first of all, what is a SQL macro?
So this is something we, well, it was originally slated to be a 20C feature, but we actually backported to 19.6. So we couldn't been able to get hands on it a bit earlier than we'd hoped. But what it allows you to do is kind of make reusable SQL functions that you can call. So there's common, quite a lot, often you have common patterns or things that you want to apply to different tables. And traditionally that's tricky with SQL. You have to do some dynamic SQL and it all gets a bit messy and so on. So SQL macros allow you to make these kind of named reusable fragments. So you can do things like find consecutive rows for this table on this column. And then you can then give that, one person writes it, you give it to developers, and it just makes it easier to make more maintainable, reusable SQL statements.
So this makes, obviously, as with probably most things that are reusable, it makes life easier, better, more efficient. So when does it make sense to use something like this, and when doesn't it? Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of microservices or things like that. I mean, so you have to figure out. I guess in some cases there are probably good use cases, and there are cases where it does not. So you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think this is a good question. And I think part of the reason I've combined it with pattern matching. So pattern matching is a really cool feature that allows you to easily search for different types of events across rows. So there's lots of queries which were just really tricky to write with standard SQL. And pattern matching makes them easy. But it's still a fairly new clause. There's still some things you need to be aware of. And certainly more junior developers or people who are just not familiar with SQL might get a little bit scared with these pattern matching clauses. Whereas you could create a function, as I said, find consecutive rows, and then hide all that logic of match recognize in there. And then everyone else really just needs to know, okay, I'm searching for consecutive rows. I pass in my table. I use an example of I'm analyzing my running training data. What's my longest chain of days where I go running every single day? How can I see that kind of thing? I'm also looking at problems like trying to find gaps. If you've got, trying to arrange a meeting with someone, you'll look in your calendar, find where the gaps are. You can use pattern matching to write some SQL to do that. But again, that might be something you want to apply to lots of different domains. So there's lots of queries which are just not obvious to write when you're starting out with SQL, but you would want to apply them to lots of different types of tables or structures. And SQL macros makes that easy. So that's kind of...
And is this something, again, that kind of relates? So when you're doing this pattern matching, is this something that typically you would be using in big data or something, or in places where you got large tables and everything, or it's like as independent of size? Or again, I'm just kind of... So you touched upon, obviously you require a certain amount of expertise. You're doing pattern matching. I'm just trying to figure out what are the other criteria or variables that kind of make this the ideal solution.
I mean, it does work well on kind of large data sets, and one of the things that it helps with, well, one of the use cases it was developed for was like stock traders. They're looking for patterns in prices of stocks. Like if the price goes down 3 days in a row, up 3 days in a row, down 3 days in a row, up 3 days in a row, and so makes a W or a V or something like that. It's tricky to write that kind of query with standard SQL. And certainly if you then want to change the pattern slightly, say down 2 days, up 3 days, that kind of thing. It's really easy to do that with pattern matching. And it's more about those kind of different sequences of events. So let's say you're trying to analyze support tickets. You know, people raise a support ticket. You want to know how often it's gone backwards and forwards from the customer to the support staff. So you can see, you know, what's the kind of sequence of events and things like that. Or again, I use the example of my running training. You know, how often did I go on like a 5K run followed by 2 or more 1K runs within a week and things like that. So it does work really well on large data sets, but it's really about thinking, I've got these different things that I want to look for in my data, and quite often you want to have them in a particular time frame as well, like a week or a month or something like that. It makes queries like that quite easy.
Okay, great. Well, it sounds like many great use cases and a great talk. So it looks like you're going to be very busy. I have to ask you one question that's being begged to ask, which has nothing to do with Sangam or SQL, but that's, you got this amazing painting in the background. So what's the story behind the rainbow?
So that's something my daughters drew, painted for me. You know, back when lockdown started, March, April kind of time.
How old is she?
So I got 2 daughters. They're 5 and 7 years old.
Oh, beautiful ages.
Yes, exactly. So they were keen to make this for me, and I think, you know, it was lovely. So I had to put it up on my wall.
You have a budding artist there.
Yes.
All right then. Chris, pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing, and all the best.
Okay. Thanks.